Right, so we got most of our main musical elements in there. Now to move on to the vocals, and there's several different things we can do here. We can do a full vocal track, so we get a singer or a rapper in to do a full vocal top line. We could go into a sample library and get some samples from there and layer them over each other, or we could get the microphone out and start recording ourselves. So what I thought I'd do is I'd show you a few different things today as to what we can do with this track. Now I've got the microphone out myself, and I've recorded myself doing a few vocal shout outs. Now I can let you into this that nobody likes the sound of their own voice, but you'll be amazed what you can do with Ableton and your own voice. So what I've done is I've recorded myself doing a few little bits here and there, and we're going to use various different effects and various different things within Ableton to kind of transform that voice and make it fit in a bit better. The bonus with kind of recording your own voice is the fact that you know what you're looking for, you know the words you're looking for, you know the rhythm that you're looking for, and it's a good way to get the kind of out there, whether it's the final vocals that you run with that you use, or whether it's just a kind of, it's a guide vocal. It might just be that you record a vocal that somebody else is going to come in and redo a bit later on, but you'd be amazed like what you can actually get out of your own voice, even if you're not a singer, even if you've got no kind of singing ability at all. You'd be amazed what you can do with a few plugins and a few effects here and there. So let's dive into the current project, and I've got a couple of takes here from what I've recorded. I'm going to import take 2 into here. Now this is me just sitting in front of the microphone. I've got a very simple microphone. It's a Scala CM25. It's going straight into my audio interface, and I haven't got a particularly soundproof room. It's just the same setup that I have for recording this video tutorial course. And what I've done is I've just basically sat there, hit record on Ableton, and just let it just record in various different things that I've been saying. Most of them just straight off the top of my head, not really kind of thinking about it much, just so we got something to cut up a bit later. It's good to just kind of get it all in one take rather than just keep stopping and starting. You might as well just go record it all in one take and then just cut it up afterwards and find the bits that you like using, things that you don't like using. Now if I jump into this audio clip, it will say, well, it's actually said it's at 1 2 3. I think I probably recorded it at 1 2 3, but depending on how you've imported, it'll probably come in at any different speed. So what I usually do on a rough take like this, I'll click the warp button to unwarp it, so it's back to this kind of original kind of look like this, and then I'll click warp again to warp it to 1 2 3. Now that's not to say that this vocal is now in time. It's not in time. As I say, it's just little clips here and there, but warping it to the time that the time thing that we have at the moment keeps it at the same speed as it originally was, but it gives us this looping tool to allow us to kind of loop up any of this vocal. And this is how I'm going to be able to find which bits might be quite cool for using within our track. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to set a loop region just over some of the vocals. I'm going to hit the loop button to loop it up, and then I'm going to move the start of the start arrow right up to the start of that loop, so we can start. It will just keep looping that the phrase that I have within the loop region there. You'll see that it's already looped over the track. And what I can do is if I play it back along with the track, you can hear. Obviously, it sounds pretty bad. House music. House music. So we got a lot of stuff here. What I'll do is I'll solo out the vocal, and then what I can do is I can move this loop region just to kind of audition all the different clips that we got within here. House music, beats, the rhythm, house music, get down, jack the beat, yeah, See, it's not amazing at the moment, but we might be able to just kind of tweak it and use different bits of it. So let's have a look at this bit here. We're jacking. So, I mean, it's not recorded fantastically, but we can kind of do some stuff with it to kind of make it nice. So, I quite like that phrase there. We're jacking. But I want the jacking bit to be at the start of the bar. And what I can do is I can use the starting point here. This arrow indicates where the loop starts from, and I can just move it in front of this jacking bit. Jacking. We're jacking. We're jacking. We're jacking. So that might work out quite nicely in the tracks. Let's see how it sounds against it. Jackin. We're jackin. We're jackin. We're jackin. So it's almost in time. It's just a little bit out. But what I can do is I can just nudge this start arrow just a bit closer to it, and it makes it a bit quicker, or I can move it a bit further away and makes it a bit slower. But you can see just by kind of nudging it like this, you'll see the waveform above just gradually move, and you can therefore just kind of line it up nicely with your track. Jackin. We're jackin. We're jackin. We're jackin. We're jackin. We're jackin. So that's kind of working already, but now we need to kind of clean it up and start transforming it a bit. What I'm going to do is I'm going to start off by transposing it. So this is going to lower it in pitch, and this will make it sound less like your own voice, which I'll love. So I'm going to first transpose it down by about, say, 4 semitones and see how that sounds. And because we're transposing it, we need to look at the algorithm as to how it transposes it. So this is how it stretches the audio, and that's the algorithm in which it uses. Now, because we're using vocals, we're probably best using the complex algorithm. The beats are obviously for beats, tones are for all kinds of instruments. Textures might work for it, but I probably stick to complex, as I find it works best in this case. So I'll put it onto complex, and we'll see how that sounds.
Jackin. We're jackin. We're jackin.
It's a bit low, so I might up it a bit.
Jackin. We're jackin. We're jackin. We're jackin.
So that kind of works all right. It sounds better. It sounds less like me. I know a lot of people who are listening to it, obviously, they wouldn't know it was you anyway, but it's you, and that's that'll annoy you for the rest of the track. So yeah, I've just decreased it by a couple of semitones. Sounds less like me. Sounds a bit more into the track. It's almost in the same key as the track. You could start having a look at what kind of key it is, and then making sure it's the right one of the track. But generally, if you can hear it, if it sounds right in your ears, then go with your ears. That's always my advice with that. I always do everything by ear. Occasionally, I'll need to get out some kind of tone measurer to kind of figure out whether it's in key or not, but generally that's it sounds good to me, that semitone. So we're going to keep it with that, and now we're going to start editing it. So what I'm going to do is first of all, I'm going to clean it up a bit. We'll solo it out first, and you'll hear that there's a load of stuff going on in the background.
Jackin. We're jackin. We're jackin.
You'll hear there's a load of kind of hum going. That's coming from the microphone, because generally picking up like room ambience. So what we're going to do is we're going to try and get rid of that a bit. Now, you could do that in an audio editor if you wanted to. But I'm going to just concentrate on what we can do within here. So I'm going to jump to the audio effects folder, and I'm going to pull in the gate. Now what the gate's going to do is it's going to knock out any sound below a certain threshold. So at the moment the threshold's quite high, so it's probably not going to let anything through. So we'll play it back and you can see how that sounds.
We're jackin. We're jackin.
So it's only letting through that tiny bit at the moment. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to lower this threshold. Well, actually, no, I'm going to put the threshold all the way to the bottom, and then I'm going to gradually increase it until we start hearing the main vocal being affected. So what we're going to hear is we're going to hear the smallest parts, the lowest volume parts of the track, parts of the vocal. They're going to be knocked out first, and what we're going to try and do is get rid of that rumble in the background, but not get rid of any of the core part of the vocal.
Jackin. We're 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 jackin.
I think that's about as close as we're going to get. There's a little bit of jacking on the end there. That's not quite being let go. We're not quite hearing that. But what we can do is we can give it a bit of release. So at the moment, the gate is basically it's on or it's off. It doesn't kind of curve down in between. But by giving it a bit of release, it will mean the effect will kind of be softened towards the end. So if we add a bit more release, you can think of it as just slowly fading to zero rather than nothing. So if I add a bit of release, you'll hear it gradually, the end of that jacking just coming in.
Jackin'. We're jackin'. We're jackin'. We're jackin'. We're jackin'. We're jackin'.
So that's gradually coming in there. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a bit more attack on it as well, because at the moment it's coming, the effect of the gate is coming in very quickly, and we want to add a bit of attack on that. And the more attack we do, the slower the effect comes in, so the smoother it is. We don't want it to be too smooth, because otherwise then we won't get the pronunciation of that initial part of the vocal. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to just give it a bit of attack, just so that we're it's softened up a little bit.
Jackin'. We're jackin'. We're jackin'. We're jackin'. We're jackin'. We're jackin'.
So I think we've done pretty well there. That's sounding quite gated. It's getting rid of a lot of that hum. The next thing we're going to do is look at editing it a bit, because there's a little bit of a kind of clip happening at the end, like a kind of lispy bit at the end, which I think is this little piece just here. So if you look at the waveform as we play it back.
Jackin'. We're jackin'. We're jackin'.
Just the tiniest little bit of clipping. We probably won't hear this in the mix, but if we're going to solo it at any point, you're definitely going to hear that, and we don't want that to come in through the track, ruining it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to manually kind of get rid of that. Now what I can do here is click the E button, and this allows me to edit any of the envelopes for this clip. And what we want to do is we want to edit the clip's volume modulation. So it's this first one here. This looks exactly the same as the automation that you get on the main part of your sequencer, but obviously it just affects this clip. So what I'm going to do, at the moment it's 100%, it's playing at 100% volume for the whole clip. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put a little envelope in here, just to there we go. Just to take that down to naught. So there we go. We've got this kind of really kind of sharp edge coming off. So we're catching the end of jackin', but hopefully we're going to cut off that clip.
Jackin'. We're jackin'. We're jackin'. We're jackin'. We're jackin'. We're jackin'.
So as you can hear, we've kind of cut that end off there, and it's quite good to get in with this, just to kind of to chop certain bits off. Say for example, we just wanted jacking in there, we could just chop the we're off.
Jackin'. 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 We're jackin'.
And in fact, that might be something we could do halfway through this. Maybe we could put the we're on the end. That might be a good idea. So I'll just put the we're on there.
We're jackin'.
And then have jackin' for each one of these. So I can just mute it on this.
Jackin'. Jackin'.
So on this part of the clip, we've just got the jacking part. And then this part of the clip, we got the we're jacking.
Jackin'. 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 We're jackin'.
So there you go, we just cut it up there quite nicely, and I think that's going to allow us to add a key phrase going throughout our track. So there we go, so we've got the gate in there. Next, we're going to put some EQ on there. Of course, this is recorded straight out of my non-soundproof room, so we need to put some good EQ on there. If we play it back, you'll see just how much bottom end is in there.
Jackin'. 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 We're jackin'. Jackin'. Jackin'.
So there you go. I put a bit of top end on there as well, just to kind of give it a bit of brightness. And next, what I'm going to do again is put the saturator on here. We're going to rough it up a bit, give it a bit of drive to kind of make it quite raw. So I'm going to take the volume of it right down to about -9 and give it +9 on here.
Jackin'. Jackin'. jackin', jackin'. We're jackin', jackin', jackin'.
So giving it a bit of raw edge. We could actually really pump it up and make it really sound grungy.
Jackin', 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 jackin'.
We're just getting some real bad distortion in there, so we're not going to put it as high as that.
Jackin', 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 jackin'.
Right, so it's very clean now. We're going to put a bit of reverb in there. Take the dry wet right down. We don't want it that high. Put it about 20% maybe. We don't want any reverb on the bottom, but we do want it on the top. And I think we'll take the decay time down as well. We don't want it as much of a tail.
Jackin', 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 jackin'. We're jackin'.
So that's kind of that empty warehouse kind of sound. It's that kind of really kind of close reverb, but yeah, kind of gives it a nice bit of atmosphere. And the next thing, again, we'll put on the ping pong delay. So again, this is just pushing it out a bit wide. We're going to really subtle with this, take it down to about 10%. See how that sounds?
Jackin', jackin', jackin'.
Actually, I'm going to change the time delay on that.
Jackin', 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 jackin'. We're jackin', jackin', jackin'.
That's sounding pretty good. I think one other thing I forgot to put in here, but I think what we should put in here is a compressor. And I'll actually put the compressor after the EQ, before the saturator, just to kind of get all the levels kind of nice together. So I'm just going to, again, all default kind of, all default settings. I'm just going to adjust the threshold. And what this is going to do is just going to make the lower part, the quieter parts louder, and just jet it together a bit.
Jackin', 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 jackin'. We're jackin', jackin', jackin'.
So it's sounding completely different from what we started off with. It's sounding a bit more kind of raw. It's got the effects in there. It's really, it's coming into the track. So we can see how that sounds with the track and mix it in.
Jackin', 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 jackin'. We're 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 jackin'.
So there you go. We got a recorded vocal in there. Again, just from me speaking into the microphone, we've now got that kind of clip in there. One other thing I'll show you is how to manipulate samples that you already have. So if I jump into this again, I've got a simple vocal sample that I've actually pulled out from one of my original acapellas. This is from an upcoming track of mine, and I've just taken a very small sample of the female singer I got in to do the track. So it's just a really simple word, just bugging. And what we're going to do is we're going to manipulate that now to kind of create almost like a vocal texture on it. And this is one of the things that is quite common with this kind of Jackin House. It's got a lot of looped vocals that create textures within the track, rather than actually being, vocals that you can actually hear and understand. They're just kind of layers within the track, just to kind of build it up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this vocal sample in here, and I'll just looping it up over here. And again, we're going to jump straight into it. I'll reduce the volume of it because it's probably getting a bit loud. Reduce the volume of it. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to, again, use this looping tool to kind of find a very short loop this time. very short loop. And I'm just gonna adjust this looping tool as we go along and see how it sounds along with the track.
Jackin, 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 jackin. We're 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 jackin, jackin, jackin.
So there we go. That vocal sample now sounds nothing like the original. We're just taken a very small amount of that sample, looped it up. I've changed the start point again just to kind of find a different start point from it. So it almost hits on the offbeat, as you can see, and lined up with all the different beats on here. It kind of hits on the offbeat, and it kind of adds that kind of texture to it. So now I'm going to get in. I'm going to start affecting this vocal again. Now, because this is a layer of vocal that we don't really need to hear what it's actually saying, we can just start playing around with it even more. So the first thing I'm going to do is put an EQ in there, and I'm going to do a harsh cut on this. We don't want much of the top, much of the bottom end, and we don't really want much of the top end. It's just that kind of texture thing going on. So I'm just going to carve out some of the bottom. In fact, I'll play it back and we can kind of carve it away.
Jackin, 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 jackin. We're jackin, 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 jackin. We're jackin, 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 jackin. We're jackin.
So that's sounding better with it cut a bit. So what I'm going to do next is put a bit of reverb on it just to kind of give it that space. I'm going to solo it so we can hear it on its own. And we want this to sound fairly big, so I'm going to leave the wet up quite high, and we'll see how that sounds on its own. So it's just added that kind of bit of atmosphere in there. And next what we're going to do is, because it's just a constant kind of sound, what we want to do is maybe make it move a bit. So we want it to kind of maybe, we don't want to pan it necessarily, but what we could do is we could kind of bring the cutoff up and down. So we could make it fade in and out using EQ. And the way we can do that is using the auto filter. It's one of my favorite tools, the auto filter, because it's just such a simple little thing. It's just like, obviously it's very similar to, if you're a DJ, then you'll know about using the filters on Mixer. And what we can do is we can just filter out the top end of that vocal. So as I kind of affect the frequency on here, it will just cut out the top end. As you can see, this is like an EQ kind of graph where it's just letting the bottom end through and cutting off that top end. So you can kind of hear it as I start moving it. So what we could do is we could have this constantly moving, and rather than having to automate this all the time, which we could do if you wanted to, or if you wanted to manually automate it, you could use as you can see when I'm moving up the frequency up and down, the red automation line is moving up and down. So we could manually automate it if we want to, but we want it to kind of just be panning gently in the background. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the LFO tool on this to be able to fade it in and out. And what that's going to do is it's going to do the work of going up and down, up and down, up and down. So I'll set the frequency quite low, almost at the lowest point that we want it to be. So that's the kind of lowest point we want it to be. And then we increase the LFO amount right up to the top, and this will gently fade it in and out. Now, the speed at which we do this, is controlled by the rate knob here. And then the phasing down here, this will pan it left and right, and it will make it phase all around, and we don't necessarily want that. I'm not a big fan of how that works. I don't feel like I've got enough control out of it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set it to 360, which will almost take all the panning out of it. It will just literally go up and down. And if we want to pan it later, then we can use the auto pan to do that. But I like kind of just leaving that at 360, and that will just keep it just in the center, and it will just fade in and out. So we've got that mostly set up, and it will do as we need to. We're just going to adjust the rate and make it maybe do it fade in and out quite a bit slower. So we'll see how this sounds at this rate, and then maybe adjust the rate. So as you can see, that's just gently going to fade in and out as we go along, which is brilliant. It's like this moving texture within our track that will constantly keep moving, and it will make each bar seem different, because obviously it's not in time with the actual beats. It's just kind of fading gently in and out on its own, just adding that moving texture to it. So let's see how that sounds in the mix and start mixing it in.
Jackin, we're jackin, we're jackin, we're jackin, we're jackin.
So there you go. I put a bit of a ping pong delay on it just to kind of give it a bit of width. It's just pinging from left to right, really kind of lightly. So we're not really noticing it as a general in-your-face effect, but it's going to add a bit of width to the whole general channel. And one other thing is, I know I mentioned I didn't want the phasing to do any of the panning, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the panning with the auto pan tool. So again, this works in a very similar way. We choose how much we want it to pan and how quick we want it to pan. Again, I'm not gonna choose a large amount of panning. I mean, that's full on going from left to right. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do a very gentle amount, just so it's kind of moving. It's constantly moving, and you might not be aware of it when you're listening to the track, but it just kind of fills the track up with things moving around, and it just creates a bit more width. So we'll play that back, and we'll just try adjusting the amount and maybe the rate.
Jackin, we're jackin. We're jackin, we're jackin.
So there we go. That's kind of moving all around the place. We've got some nice vocal textures going on there. So we've got our main vocal that we can use within here, and then we've got this background vocal. This background vocal we can pretty much use through most of the track. It almost adds another kind of dimension to the drum layer. It's kind of a very percussive kind of thing. So that's what we could use, through most of the track. So that's the vocals. I think we've got pretty much everything we need now to start doing a basic arrangement on it. We don't want to stay in this loop for too long, because we're just going to end up being zapped into it, and we're not going to be able to think of this as a full length track. So we've got most of the elements we need within here to start arranging, or at least coming up with a basic arrangement. Then we can start adding some more layers onto it, and probably tweaking the mix of different elements within it.